did ancient aliens impart advanced astronomical knowledge to the Dogon tribe? As we see in the headline picture above, Sirius A and Sirius B shown in an image taken by Hubble Space Telescope. The white dwarf can be seen in the lower left, NASA, ESA, Barstow, University of Leicester. And the man from Mali Dogon tribe, Ferdinand Reus, Wikipedia Commons. Skeptics and proponents of the ancient aliens theory faced off for decades on the issue of the Dogon tribe's allegedly advanced astronomical knowledge. And here's a look at some of the arguments on both sides concerning this tribe from Mali, Africa, and its purported knowledge of the motions of the stars not visible on Earth without modern telescopes. This is by Tara Makisak, Epoch Times Unfettered Reality. So how did they know about this since they had no modern telescopes? What the Dogon are said to have known. Sirius is the brightest star in the sky and had a prominent place in many ancient cultures. Sirius, which is about 8.7 light years from our Earth, has a white dwarf companion star, Sirius B. Sirius B cannot be seen with the naked eye, and astronomers first guessed at its existence in the 1830s. They mathematically developed a theoretical model of its orbit around Sirius, now referred to as Sirius A, later in the 19th century. The astronomers knew that Sirius B must be made of a superdense matter, but the specifics were beyond their comprehension until quantum physics helped explain it in 1926. In 1894, irregularities in the movements of Sirius B led astronomers to consider that a third star, Sirius C, may exist and exert an influence on Sirius B's orbit. It's still a matter of debate whether Sirius C exists or not. The Dogon are said to have known all of this centuries before Western astronomers began contemplating it. For them, Sirius is a three-star system. They allegedly accurately describe Sirius B. They say it is a companion star for Sirius that is invisible from Earth, that it has a 50-year orbital period, that it travels around Sirius A along an elliptical path, and that it's made of a heavy substance not found on our Earth. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. So not only do they know about Sirius A and Sirius B, that it has an elliptic of 50 years, but they also say that it has a heavy substance that is not found on our Earth. The Dogon are also said to have understood that the Earth and other planets rotate on their axis, that they orbit the Sun, that Jupiter has 4 moons, and that Saturn has rings around it. So not only do they know about Sirius, they know about the gas giants as well. An article by NASA's Chandra Observatory stated, quote, Carl Sagan commented in his book, Broca's Brain, the conclusion about planetary orbits, though a rare insight, is one that can be achieved without high technology, as demonstrated by some Greeks and Copernicus. As for the moons of Jupiter and Saturn's rings, with a combination of extraordinary eyesight and perfectly clear skies, it might be possible to see them without a telescope, end quote. Could the Dogon have somehow seen Sirius B themselves? But skeptics and ancient aliens proponents generally seem to agree that the Dogon could not have observed Sirius B or its orbit around Sirius A themselves. The only way Sirius B would have been visible to the Dogon and all other cultures is if it were a red giant a few thousand years ago, according to Liam McDade, an astronomy professor at Sacramento City College and a senior scientist for nonprofit organization, the Skeptic Society. If this were the case, anyone could have easily observed both Sirius A and Sirius B in action. Some say the ancients indeed described Sirius as a red giant. But McDade explained in an article written for the Society, one problem with this idea is that Sirius B has been a white dwarf for at least tens of thousands of years. If Sirius B had been a red giant only a few thousand years ago, there would still be a bright and noticeable planetary nebula around it today, but no such nebula is seen, end quote. He says the second problem is that ancient writers seem to use color for stars in a way different from the way we do. They describe Pollux, Arcturus, and Capella as red. A modern observer would call them yellow-orange, orange and yellow respectively. And finally, even if Sirius B had been a visible red giant a few thousand years ago, how would the Dogon know that Sirius B was still there after it became a white dwarf? McDade concluded, as did famed astronomer Carl Sagan, that the Dogon's knowledge of Sirius B must have come from an advanced culture. McDade concluded, as did famed astronomer Carl Sagan, that the Dogon's knowledge of Sirius B must have come from an advanced culture. Sagan and McDade said it must have come from modern Western culture. Others say it's unlikely. So what are the chances of receiving the knowledge from Western contact? The theory that the Dogon possessed this advanced knowledge of Sirius B is based on the anthropological accounts of Dr. Germain Dieterlen, the Secretary General of Société des Africains at the Museum of Musée de Rome in Paris, and Dr. Marcel Griot, who visited the tribe together in the 1930s. Robert Temple's book, The Sirius Mystery, published in 1976, popularized the ancient aliens theory as an explanation of the Dogon's knowledge. He refuted the arguments given by Sagan for why the Dogon may have gained the astronomical knowledge through contact with the Western world. In an open letter to Sagan, written in 1981, Temple stated, quote, as Dr. Dieterlen has spent most of her life living with the Dogon and knows them and their traditions more intimately than anyone else alive, her opinion on a possible Western origin for the Sirius traditions of the Dogon is of the highest importance. She answers such suggestions with a single word, absurd, end quote. During an interview from BBC Special, she had shown a 400-year-old Dogon artifact representing the 3 stars of the Sirius system. This part was edited out of the American broadcast, Temple said, which may be why American skeptics have overlooked this evidence and Dieterlen's testimony. In a sober and lucid interview for a rather bizarre show, Talk Psychic, Temple stated, if you ask the Dogon, they will tell you, and that's what nobody else wants to hear. They say that their ancestors were given the information from visitors from the system of the star Sirius. Robert Temple says they say that their ancestors were given the information from visitors from the system of the star Sirius. Temple said the knowledge of the Sirius system is pervasive in Dogon culture, quote, embodied in hundreds of thousands of objects, symbols, woven blankets, carved statues, etc., end quote. He thinks it's impossible that the knowledge could have seeped into the culture so quickly from the time Western astronomers made these discoveries to the time Dieterlen and Griot began their research in 1931. And how these hundreds or thousands of objects are meant to have been expertly fabricated, fakes purporting to centuries old, baffles me even more, he says. It's considerations like these and many more, such as the tribal sacredness of the tradition, making it unlikely that it could have come from Western intruders who would not have been highly regarded or in the confidence of the meticulous and traditional priests, which led Dr. Dieterlen to reject the suggestions of Western origins as absurd. In 1979 to 80, anthropologist Walter van Beek studied the Dogon. He found the Dogon cosmology much different than reported by Griot and Dieterlen. Van Beek said the Dogon understanding of the Sirius system was not clear or unified. He received various explanations from various Dogon sources, and some of them said what they knew of the system came to them from Griot. Griot has been criticized for using leading questions in planting the astronomical knowledge in the Dogon. Griol has been criticized for using leading question planting astronomical knowledge in the Dogon, while Griol's daughter Genevieve Calame Griol has also criticized Van Beek's methods. It's unclear whether changes in the Dogon since 1930s may account for Van Beek's findings. The Dogon's contact with Western society, with people who would have known of the astronomers' discoveries, was limited in the 19th century into the early 20th century. But some interaction did occur, so it's not impossible that they came into contact with the information this way. Even if they did, however, is it possible they already had this understanding of the Sirius system? This is Unbended Reality from Tara McIsaac, Epoch Times. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support.